Hey everyone, how's it going? It is exactly, I think, to the minute, almost to the second, 1 week until all of our Game Week 1 drafts are locked in for the FPL 25-26 season. We've got 1 week to go. It's really crept up fast, actually. I can't believe how quickly the time has gone. Considering preseason, well, for FPL managers started pretty late this year, it has really ticked past pretty quickly. So I thought today would be a good opportunity. Number one, because I'm home alone with nothing better to do on a Friday night. So if you're watching this, hopefully you're like me and we can have a bit of fun. But number two, because we've got a week to go, we've got burning questions that we need to answer. I've got a latest draft that I really like the look of that I wanted to show you all and maybe work out some stuff as well. And I've got a number of questions from the community, from a few of you as well, I'm sure, that gave your questions yesterday. And of course, if you want to throw your questions in the chat, please do so. And I'll try and answer as many of them as possible before we end the stream. Now, I don't really have a deadline on how long this stream's going to be, by the way. It's basically just going to keep on going until I get hungry enough to order myself some dinner or just go downstairs and, if I'm not feeling too lazy, go and make myself something. But hopefully this will be the first of regular live streams throughout the season. So mini announcement, I suppose. I've already mentioned it once, I think, on a previous live stream. I'm going to do live streams weekly this year. I'm going to commit to it. I'm not going to do deadline live streams per se. I think what I'm probably going to do is a night before, so Thursday night before a Friday deadline or a Friday night before a Saturday deadline, because honestly, I'm just not going to get any views if I do it on a deadline stream because there are so many big accounts out there. But what I thought would be fun is we can chill out on a Thursday or Friday evening. You can get your questions in. We can have a look at my draft. We can play a few games, answer a few questions, and it's a much more relaxed version of a live stream. And of course, there'll be serious FPL chat, but with a beer in hand half the time, and we can have a bit of fun along the way, rather than the pressure of a deadline creeping up. It's hard to answer questions because there's loads of them coming in, and people start panicking a little bit and get a little bit stressed out. If we do it the night before, we can have a bit of a good time. I can have a drink, you can have a drink, and we can all just have a bit of fun before the pressure of the next day gets to us, and maybe we can think with a clearer head before, you know, everything starts going haywire on the morning of the deadline. So I'm just gonna check in on the chat. I'm gonna do a better job of checking in on the chat this time. Last time I was awful at it, but I've set up my screen in a slightly different way. You won't see it, but I've got the chat like right in front of me now, so there is no missing it. So if I don't respond to you quickly enough, it's basically just because I'm an idiot. So I need to be much sharper on that. I've got other screens that I'll go across to now. So I'll move across to, let's go across to the live screen actually, because I think that'll be easier, and I'll reveal my draft straight away. I'm not going to bait you and do it over time. I'm going to actually get involved. So before we walk through my live stream, and feel free to comment what you think of, before we look through my team even, before I go through it piece by piece, feel free to comment, feel free to rip it apart in the comments, and I'll get back to you and feed that through my thinking as I explain my draft. So a few people in the chat. Spidey says, hey, the other gunner coming from Blue Sky. Great that people are still on Blue Sky, by the way. I still really enjoy it on there. I like posting on there. It seems like a really positive community, so I don't want to stop. So it's great there are still people on there. So thank you for finding me on Blue Sky. Nixie, I think that's Nixie. Please tell me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Hey to you as well. I've just seen your chat about Bench Boost. I'll get to that in a second when walking through this team. Raptor's in the chat, which is pretty awesome, to be fair. Raptor, obviously, you all know who Ross is. He's been really kind to give me loads of advice over the years on YouTube, and I've been on his show Therapy a few times as well. Stay tuned for that in the next few weeks as well. Fingers crossed. Hopefully that's not too much of a reveal. But yeah, looking forward to chatting through FPL with him again very soon, and he's a great guy in real life as well. So yeah, any extra followers he can get, any extra subscribers, send them his way as well. Speaking of, again, another thing I'm really bad at on these, I just keep talking and talking and talking. I never ask for likes, and I never ask for people to subscribe. What would be great is if you're watching this, just hit like, one that gets it shown to other people on YouTube right now. But if you hit subscribe as well, that would be hugely appreciated. Only if you enjoy the content. If you don't, fine, fair enough. You don't have to ever have to watch me again. But if you do, and you think what I'm saying is in any way valuable or fun or entertaining, then I'd really appreciate it if you could. One, because I think it's 4,060 right now. I did set myself a goal of 4,000 before game week 1. I've hit that. So thank you so much for that. Now I'm going to set myself another mini goal of 4,100. And if I hit that, I'll set myself another goal of 4,200. So if I can just get a few more tonight and get slightly closer, that would be amazing. But anyone who's not subscribed, please feel free to do so. I'd really appreciate it. And hit that notification bell as well. I think I'm doing a video every day now between now and the deadline. So if you don't want to miss out on any of that, please, by all means, hit that notification bell. It would be really appreciated. Anyway, I've done enough asking for help and enough asking for your support. Let's have a look at this draft to begin with, because that's what we're all here for at the end of the day. So first up, I have stuck with Sanchez and Dravka. I think they were both in my last draft, if I remember it correctly. So Sanchez, number 1. I don't think that's too controversial. I've got Solio up on another page. If you haven't heard of them, they're fantastic. I will be going through the data behind some of these picks in a moment's time. Running through the draft, though, Chelsea have a decent set of opening fixtures. Colwill is no longer an option, unfortunately. It looks like he's going to be out for the majority of the season. And I think at 5 million, Sanchez and Sells are like probably the two standout picks for me, but I don't feel confident enough on Nottingham Forest's defence to double up. So I do want to spread that a little bit. I've still got that exposure to Chelsea defence and Sanchez. Maybe there's some worries about minutes, but I don't really think there are. I've seen the team sheet with Jorgensen starting tonight. It looks like a bit of a B team, so I'm hoping that Sanchez is safe. But to be honest, usually the information that we get out of the press conferences with Chelsea specifically tends to be fairly accurate. He doesn't tend to lie, Maresca, all too often, and he's usually fairly upfront about who his number 1 keeper is. So we might get a strong sense before the game week 1 deadline of which keeper is going to be the guy. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Sanchez. He's been a lot more secure recently, especially towards the second half of the season. So I think he's safe, and I do like the fixtures. Moving into actually, I should mention, Nixie asked me what week am I bench boosting. If you look at my bench, that is pretty well set up for game week 2. It's not ideal for game week 2, I have to admit, because I've got 2 Burnley defenders going up against a Sunderland striker. Obviously, they play each other. So I can't, it's like double jeopardy. I can't really get both of them. I can only get one or the other likely. So it does limit the upside. But again, let me know in the chat what you think of this, but I kind of think the bench boost is a little bit overrated for the first half of the season. Not in a double game week. It takes a lot of planning a lot of the time, and I've seen a lot of bench boost sides, especially for game week 1, where the budget is spread fairly consistently across the 15. I'm just not keen for that. I think if I want to hold on to my wildcard, which I do, I want hopefully to wildcard post game week 10, maybe around game week 13. If I can do that, then what I want to do is not really have to spread my money into my 13th, 14th, 15th players. So what I've done here, I've gone for starters. Estev's a starter, Anderson's a starter, Dravka hopefully going to be number 1 keeper, but not committing too many funds. In fact, I think I'm only 0.5 over the bare minimum for the amount of money you can spend on a bench, and that is on Anderson, who I'll come on to in a moment's time. So this would be a bench boost too, but if for whatever reason Dravka isn't nailed to start in game week 2, or Dewey, something like that, he will probably be the starter. But if he's not quite ready to be the starter by game week 2, because he has only just signed at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose too much sleep over that. I'm happy to postpone the bench boost and use it around the wild card in game weeks, around about game week 13. Also, because I've got double Burnley, all I need to look out for, really, because I'm benching them any week anyway, is just to look out for the weeks in which they've got a decent home fixture against a side that might not score too many goals. So Sunderland's a great one. Leeds, maybe, although they don't look too bad. Everton, possibly. Maybe Wolves. Something where there's at least a a chance of a clean sheet, I suppose. So nothing too guaranteed there, because it is Burnley at the end of the day. But if I can get 2 to 4 points off of either of them, I would call that a relative success. And then someone like an Anderson on my bench, and then Ross has mentioned that GU with a hard G, GU on the bench as well. If he can get himself into the starting 11 by a later point, even with a poor fixture, I'm happy to bench boost with that. And I think the key thing for me is just not committing too much of my time and money to the bench boost. If I'm planning weeks in advance for it, I think it will come to the detriment of my sides in those game weeks, and the transfers will get spent on it. I just don't want to have to do that. So that's the way I'm lining up at the moment. It might be wrong, and absolutely feel free to disagree in the chat. And again, I've just noticed a couple of people asking, is Dravka guaranteed to be number one? I mean, no, probably not guaranteed. I would say the chances are very strong. Otherwise, why would they bother signing him at this point? Someone who's, I think he's like 36, 37 years old. I don't know why you would. I assume he comes on fairly high wages as well. I don't know why you would commit to that as a Burnley side, having lost Trafford, if he's not going to be the starter. But at the start of the season, we are always going to have those points of contention. So I completely understand that. There is always the chance that he's not going to be the number one keeper. I think there's a pretty good chance he is, though. So I'm happy enough to risk it on that. And if he isn't, then fine. He's just a bench keeper, and I can wildcard and bench boost around that, or maybe just use one transfer to correct that mistake. So moving into defense, I've gone one of each price point, which I didn't intend on doing, but actually I quite like that structure because it just gives me that flexibility, I suppose. You've got Virgil van Dijk, great on the C bit, but also a bit of goal threat and good defensively. Then you've got Williams, who I think is a standout pick at 5 million. The alternative would be a Lacroix, possibly, but I don't love the fixtures quite as much for Palace. So what I've done is I've targeted the attacking upside of a Munoz at 5.5 with Williams, who's the slightly cheaper of the Nottingham Forest defenders, rather than the inverse, which would be Lacroix at 5 and then a more expensive Nottingham Forest defender like a Murillo or a Milenkovic. We've spoken about Williams on this channel a lot. He's decent on the DEFCON C-bit, whatever you want to call it, and he has good attacking data for a 5 million defender, 0.08, I think, which is quite far ahead of his opposite fullback Aina, so I'm happy enough to recommend him. Munoz is kind of the vibes pick, so let me know what you think of that. And then to round off the defense, Anderson, again, 4.5. I think he is the standout defensive pick. Got a couple of questions on that later, so we'll go into that in detail in a bit. But I do think that he is worth the money at 4.5. And although the fixtures don't look great to begin with, I think he's just going to churn out those underlying, the defensive contribution points. So I'm pretty happy with that. So anyway, we've talked about the defense, we've talked about the goalkeepers. Let's have a look at some of the chat. Couple of messages on the nice team badge, which honestly, I forgot that was even on the screen. I did that in about 20 seconds, and I basically just put all of the elements of the Southampton badge, which you'll see behind me there. So you've got the tree, you've got the red and white stripes. I asked for water because the Saints badge has a little lake or a little river at the bottom, and it popped that out to me. So yeah, I think it's better than some I've seen. I'm not gonna lie, I've used it once and I don't plan on using it again, but fair enough. If you like it, I'm glad you do. I'm very glad that that's caught the eye. So yeah, I might have another go at that later on in the stream if you guys fancy. A few WGTA fans in the chat as well, so good to see that. Obviously, Who Got the Assist is the podcast I do with my co-host Tom. So if you get the chance, go check that out. The live streams are going to be a bit longer than my standard videos on here, but if you want the longer version of all of my thoughts and you want to dive inside my brain, I don't know why on earth you'd want to do that, but if you did, then the longer form content with Tom is a bit more, I suppose you'd say, intellectual. Like, we've got the psychology pod with Ross, who is hopefully still in the chat. I've really enjoyed doing that. That was a great show where I basically just sat in the corner just nodding along to what Ross and Tom said, who are absolute experts on that. Some really good chats on there, and I'm mostly along for the ride. So yeah, really honoured to be on there for the third season. elsewhere in the chat. So we've got some questions on Keller at Brentford. Yeah, is he injured actually? That's a good question, Nixie. I hadn't spotted that. I will have to check that out at some point. If anyone's got information on that in the chat, do let me know. I haven't heard anything on a Kelleher injury. Often in preseason, they do rotate a little bit so that maybe they've got back-to-back games. Maybe he's just being rested. Maybe there are personal reasons he's not in the squad. So I wouldn't panic just yet. But yeah, maybe one to keep an eye on. I hadn't seen that, so I will check that out. A few other people in the chat. Jack says hi. Eman says hello. Also, we've got Nobby in the chat. We've got Greg in the chat. Camran in the chat as well. It's great to see you all. Thank you so much for getting involved. We've got some questions coming up as well. But if you wanted to throw your questions into the chat, then I will try and feed through that as we go and we can answer them on the fly throughout the show. So, moving into the midfield, I've got Salah, Palmer. They haven't really left any of my drafts yet. Actually, to be honest, I'm pretty sure that 4 out of the 5 of those midfielders have been in 99% of my teams. Salah, Palmer, Ndiaye, and Anderson haven't really gone anywhere for quite a while now. Anderson, I just think is standout good value at 5.5. He will get haters, and I got into a bit of a chat on Twitter, on X the other day about him. But again, let me know in the chat what you think of it. But I think he's maybe not the standout 5.5, which might sound a bit weird considering I've picked him. But what I really want is the guarantee of points to begin with. And although Anderson's not fun or interesting pretty much in any way, he's got some set pieces, he's got a little bit of attacking threat, maybe 1 in 5 he'll get a return. But with that in mind, what we do know is he's a guaranteed starter who will get 80 to 90 minutes, and he's insanely good on the defensive contribution points. I saw a stat that I think it was up until game week 15 last season, he barely got any DEFCONs. So the data is a little bit skewed. But the reason he didn't get DEFCONs was because he wasn't playing the full 90. And then after game week 15, I think it was Chewy on X, so go check him out. I think it was after game week 15, so 16 onwards, he got 90 pretty much every week, and he became a machine for defensive contributions. I'm talking about like 75% of matches he was getting them. So if that continues, and there is absolutely no reason that shouldn't continue, because he is a great player, he's on the up, he's very important to Forest, he's going to drip feed 4 points to 5 points pretty much every single week now, regardless of the fixtures as well, which was another factor that I noticed. He's kind of immune to the fixtures in terms of the defensive contributions. And then if he gets an attack and return every 4 or 5 game weeks, then your quid's in. Like, you're absolutely loving life. You can average 4 or 5 points a week. That will get you up to about a 140 point player over the season. And then if you've got a few attack and returns in there as well, a few bonus points as well, you're absolutely loving it. So Anderson for me is a great steady Eddie pick to start the season. I know he's not exciting, I get that. And I would confidently predict there will be at least 1, maybe 2, 5.5 or under midfielders who outscore him this season. And I'm absolutely fine with that. I think the question is, which? Do you know which players those are going to be? Because if you're fully confident which of those players are going to just hit the ground running, like a Palmer, like a Rodgers in the last couple of seasons, and become absolutely inevitable every single week, then go for them. But I'm not confident on any of them enough to be going for them over Anderson yet, and that is why he's in my side. And then after a few game weeks' time, it might become clear that John Arias or a Harry Wilson is all of a sudden just the pick at 5.5. Maybe they're up to 5.6, 5.7, fine, whatever. I can move some money around. But until that point, I'm very happy with the little drip feed of 4 or 5 pointers and the odd return, because if that happens, I'm not going to lose any ground. I might lose a little bit of ground to the handful of managers who get the right 5.5, who absolutely hits the ground running. But against the majority of the crowd who also go for 5.5s, but it doesn't quite work out, I'm just going to be sat pretty on 20 to 25 points after 4 or 5 game weeks. And they might only have a handful. They might only have 8 to 10 points. There might be a small handful of managers who have a few more, but I'm going to be ahead of the majority. So that's why Anderson's in there. Palmer and Salah, again, they're not exciting. We all know why they're great. I think there's conversations about whether Haaland might be the pick and you can go the other way. And I think that can absolutely work out. Again, I would not tell anyone to not go with a Haaland draft. I think I just don't want to lose ground to begin with. And I can't see a reason why Salah and Palmer won't hit the ground running. And I definitely don't want to go without Salah. And if it's a decision between Palmer and Haaland, that extra 3.5 million, it is 3.5 million, right? Yeah, 14 million for Haaland, 10.5 for Palmer. That extra 3.5 million just goes so far in the draft. And I've got 4 relative premiums here, premium lights in Bruno and Watkins. With Haaland in there, I would have to sacrifice a lot of that. So straight away, that Bruno position might have to come all the way down to a Kudus or something. So it does make a big, big difference for me. And although I think Haaland could start off like a freight train this season, the ownership is low enough that it won't punish me to begin with. And if I need to hit some sort of wildcard button to like get him in if there is a bit of crowd love for him and people start flocking there, then at least I'm in that crowd as well. I've not lost too much ground because the ownership's low enough. Right, so back to the chat. Ross has mentioned, again, Raptor, so we know it's reliable. Kelleher isn't in the squad for the game tonight. Valdemarson starting, otherwise pretty much full strength. So that is interesting. That might be something to monitor. Obviously, I'm on here, so I can't really live check too much of the injury news. But yeah, let me know in the comments if there's anything coming out about what's going on with Kelleher. It is interesting, though, that Brentford also have a game tomorrow, apparently, says OP Talent in the chat. So thank you very much for that. If that's the case, I do wonder if maybe Kelleher, for whatever reason, it just couldn't play tonight and maybe he gets to start tomorrow. It is interesting, though, if they are going full strength tonight with Valdemarson in there, maybe there is something to that. But I probably wouldn't panic too much at this point. I think that's just probably speculation for now. So we've got thoughts on Lewis Potter. I quite like it. I have to say, I think out of the Brentford assets, straight away, I'd probably avoid generally right now because there's a lot of worries over how good they're going to be considering what they've lost. They've obviously lost their manager as well. I don't think that means they're going to be a bad side, but I'm interested to see how things will develop for them over the first few game weeks. And Lewis Potter, I believe he comes in at 5 million. Then you've got Collins at 5 million, who's really good on the defensive contributions. So out of the two, I'd probably go with Collins. And then you've also got Kelleher, who I've just mentioned at 4.5 as well. So a little bit of a cheaper entry point. So I don't dislike Lewis Potter, and he's got the attacking upside, but I'd also be a little bit cautious to begin with, maybe. So we've got thoughts on Gakpo. Gakpo could be really interesting. I think what I'll do here, actually, this is a really good opportunity to maybe move over to Solio, if that works. Has that worked? Let me know if that's on screen, guys. I can't see it yet. Okay, cool. It looks like it's coming through. So, perfect. So this is Solio. Little introduction to Solio if you haven't already heard about it. So Solio is going to be my data provider for this season. I'm really, really proud of this. So this is not in any way sponsored. This is me reaching out to them at the start of the summer because I saw the people that were working on Solio and I was like, I've got to have a piece of this. And I really thought that it would take my videos to another level. So Solio, in essence, without giving you the full marketing spiel, because you don't need that, what it is an FPL planning tool which takes into account live market odds. And the market odds that they use are effectively from Rob TFPL, who a lot of you in the chat will already know. He's absolutely brilliant at what he does. And he bakes them in to these algorithms. So what I've got in front of me here is the expected points for, I think it's, first 6 game weeks for some of the top assets. So we can filter this, of course. So let's say, I don't know, we want to look at midfielders under 8 million. So Gakpo was the question, I think. So we've got Gakpo here at 7.5 million. Looks pretty reasonable here. But as you can see at the bottom, they've baked in their expected minutes. And there's a 75% chance he gets past 60 minutes. And then a 23-ish% chance he gets to 90. So that is probably the reason that maybe he's averaging 4.7 points, 4.07 points a week over the first 6. Whereas someone like an Eze, who's got penalty share, who's got better expected minutes, as you can see here, average of 78.9 expected. all of those reasons, even though he's not got, or he's not around as good an attack as Liverpool is, he is expected to outperform him by about 0.7 points a game. So it's not by a great margin. So all of this is definitely within a margin of error. But what I really like about this tool, and the reason that I wanted to work with them specifically, is because you can change it. Like, if you disagree, so let's say Gakpo, which I think is a great example, by the way. So I can't remember who asked the question. I'll see if I can get the chat up to get that back. Sports and Games 101. So thank you very much for the question. So on Gakpo, as a great example here, let's say that you think differently to what the market is saying and what the presumptions on expected minutes are saying. And you're like, okay, well, Liverpool haven't really signed a left winger. He looks fantastic in pre-season. I think he's got a much better chance of getting over 60 minutes than 75%. Fine. So what you can do, just drag this up at the bottom here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but there's a little graph at the bottom. I've dragged the percentage chance of him hitting 60 minutes up to like 95%. And then I've also said, right, 90 minutes, I reckon he's got a 50% chance of getting up to 90 minutes. Let's apply that to all of the game weeks, and bam, he's top. So it doesn't take much for Gakpo to go from, okay, a good FPL asset that maybe the market's not too hot on because of the expected minutes, to, okay, I've put in my own reasoning, my own thinking based on what I've seen in preseason, based on what I think is going to happen. And Gakpo is now a standout option at 7.5 million. In fact, significantly better than even Eberechi Eze. So that's what I really like about this tool. You can bake in your own thinking and your own predictions. It doesn't really even stop there as well. So Gakpo, let's reset Gakpo for now because I want this tool to go back to its base settings. But Tielemans is a great example. So the models, Solio, Review, probably Hub and Scout as well, all of them are really hot on Tielemans. I'm sure you've seen it in the last few days. He started appearing in drafts. Everyone's sort of questioning where has he come from. He's never really been a pick before. The reason Tielemans is a pick, and the reason people think he's a good pick all of a sudden, and the models think he's good, is because they assume he's going to have a share of penalties, that he is likely going to be the penalty taker for Villa. If you disagree with that, on Solio, all you have to do is go down to the bottom where you've got the goals per 90 week to week, and you can just drag it down. So 0.15 on average a week. Let's say he loses penalties. Okay, well, let's bring that down to, I don't know, 0.8 a week. And all of a sudden, he drops down to 4.11 on average over the first 6 game weeks. So, okay, he's still a good pick because he's a nailed 90-minute man nailed-ish 90-minute man at Villa, a good attack, and he does tick a lot of boxes still. And who knows, maybe Watkins gets injured. If you think Watkins even takes the penalties and Tielemans takes one, he's still not going to lose all of the penalty share. But it does bring him down significantly. And okay, he's still a standout pick at 6 million apparently, but maybe it's enough. He's gone down enough that maybe you're like, okay, I'll just spend the extra on an Enzo or an Ndai, for instance, or Ismail Assar, who, again, you might think, fine, actually, the goal average for the first 6 game weeks, I reckon it's a bit higher than that. I reckon he's got a much better chance of goals. And then all of a sudden, Sarr goes up to second in the list. So what I really do like about this tool is the fact that you can alter to what you believe is going to happen. So no two tools are ever going to look the same. Like my draft is going to look different to Ross FPL Raptors draft or to FPL Harry's draft or to Praz's draft because I've interpreted what I've seen with my own eyes differently. So I think that's why I was so interested in working with Solio in the first place. So if you've got any questions about like which players might stand out on using Solio, do let me know in the chat. We'll go back to my draft for the time being. The chat's been hidden for a little while, so let's get updated on that. Also, I hope you don't mind if every now and then I'm silent for a second while I take a drink. I'm very, very used to just talking non-stop on these things because usually I just hit record, it's not live, and if there's a silence, I just have to cut it out, so I just talk through. With these, and I've noticed all of the best streamers do tend to just shut up for a minute and read the chat, and you can get away with just taking a breather. So I will be doing that every now and then. So with that in mind, I'll take a drink, get the questions in the chat. Let me know what you think of that forward line, especially as well. And I'm interested to hear what the opinions on not going with a 7.5 million forward are, because I'm toying with three different combinations, basically. Again, a question for the chat. I've got three versions of this. One is Fernandez, Watkins, and who is it? Fernandez, Watkins, and Anderson. The second version is I drop 1.5 million out of Watkins. He becomes Solanke, or maybe a João Pedro, maybe a Chris Wood, maybe a Mateta. So a 7.5 million striker instead of Watkins. Then Anderson gets upgraded to Rodgers. Now, that becomes less tempting if Rodgers is injured, of course, but we'll know that soon enough. The other option is, instead of dropping the money out of Watkins, I drop the money out of Fernandez, and Fernandez becomes Eberechi Eze, and again I upgrade Anderson to Rodgers. So then I've got either double Villa attack, Rodgers and Watkins, or I could make Watkins into a Gyökeres, for instance. So yeah, excited. Like, let me know what you think on those. A few more things in the chat. Mike says this is, I think he's talking about my team, by the way. I'm not certain, but I assume it is pretty much template. You know what? I don't really usually disagree. I do disagree on that. I don't think this is template, because if you look at the ownership on most of these players, 12 out of 15 of these, 12 are under 20% ownership. 12. 6 out of 15 are under 10% ownership. So I would say, actually, there are a fair few, not risks, but I think there are a fair few differentials in this draft. I don't think this is massively template. So Bruno, for instance, obviously lots to talk about him at the moment. He's 14.5% owned. 85% of the game don't own Bruno right now. Anderson, 5% owned. 95% of the game don't own him. Palmer, Salah, and who's the other one? Who is the other one? There's one other high ownership player in my team. Is it? No. Is it Virgil van Dijk? Yeah, Van Dijk, 24.2. So those are the three that are over 20%. So Van Dijk, Salah, Palmer. Outside of that, I agree that they've been popping up a lot in YouTubers' teams and content creators' teams. So that's fair. But actually, when you look at the player base, they're actually pretty low owned. So even Watkins, 17% ownership. So 83% of the game don't own Watkins. I think that's kind of amazing when you think about it. So yeah, I mean, this is far from locked, to be honest. But I really do like the idea of having a lot of penalty takers, a lot of players with very high expected minutes, and set pieces as well, with decent underlying data. So what I've done here is, I think pretty much every single player in that starting 11 is absolutely nailed. Like, there's almost no chance that any of these players just lose their spot immediately. It might happen over time, but I don't think to begin with. So Strand Larsen, again, I think, what's he owned by now? 5%, 6% of teams. So I think I do agree in the sense that the template on YouTube or Twitter is starting to gear towards a few of these players, so that's fair. But I think I'm not fighting against just the people on Twitter. I'm also trying to beat the people who are playing the game off of Twitter and off of YouTube. So I don't really mind if my team happens to end up a little bit similar to, I don't know, let's say Ross's or Harry's or whatever, by which point, actually, I don't think it is that similar right now, having seen their latest drafts. But I think I can see what you mean, but all I'm focused on, and one thing that maybe was to my detriment last season, was I became a little bit obsessed with making sure I was different and I didn't get that accusation of being too similar to people. This season, I don't care about any of that. I don't care if I happen to be similar to someone. I'm just going to pick the players that I like. And if Fernandez ends up 100% ownership, fine. I don't mind. Well, I mind a little bit because I'd like some benefit. But if I think he's a good pick, he'll be in there. But this draft is far from locked, to be honest. So yeah, there's a few combinations I like, especially with those three, Anderson, Fernandez, Watkins. That could shift around a lot. I could end up possibly on a different player from Ndiaye as well. I mean, there is a little bit of speculation about whether or not he's going to move. I don't think that's going to happen, so I'm pretty secure. But that might end up being another 6.5 million asset, or maybe there's a way that I can upgrade that to an Eze and downgrade Bruno perhaps, or Watkins perhaps. So yeah, I mean, okay, maybe a little bit template. D Unit says bench is really weak. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Anderson's phenomenally strong. So Anderson, and I mean the Fulham Anderson in this, for a first bench defender, I think is brilliant because he is going to churn out defensive contribution points. So if there's ever an injury in my 11, he is the perfect replacement in any given week. And he rotates well with Williams in the 1 week that Williams has a bad fixture. So there is that. But Anderson most weeks will probably be on my bench. And he is going to just churn out 4 points or 3 to 4 points most weeks, even without the clean sheets. So I think that saves me from ever really needing to take a hit in a time of crisis. Then you've got Esteve as well, who I don't want to maybe go too far on this, but I think he's another hit saver. I think that because of what we saw last season with the likes of Bednarek and Wout Faes, who were in historically bad defenses, they got the benefit of like an extra 40 defensive contribution points. If that's the case this season with Esteve, and it looks like he's going to be a bit of a monster on the DEFCONs. In fact, if I go back to Solio, what another thing they've done really well is they've done the percentages on defensive contributions projected for all of the players. And Esteve, guess what, comes out on top. But not only on top, he's expected to get defensive contributions in 2/3 of matches. That is absolutely nuts. If that actually happens, and if these projections are right, then he's going to be getting 3 to 4 points most weeks. Yes, he'll concede 2 quite a lot, which is why I say 3 points. But if he can get 3 or 4 points most weeks, then in a real crisis where I'm like, I just don't want to take a hit, Esteve could play. And it's not exciting, it's not fun, and most people will probably laugh at my team that week, and rightfully so if I'm starting a Burnley player. But I think if there is an injury and I don't have the transfers to fix it, Esteve and Anderson really do kind of cover me because of those defensive contributions. And then you've got Giu, who, okay, I'm not expecting much from, but if he can get a starting place at Sunderland, he might tick over with a few points. I think that generally I'm just not going to need to worry about that too much. And as long as he's playing minutes, I think that's fine. Dravka needs to start for Burnley, and then if that's the case, I'm actually fairly happy with this bench. There's not much money on it, but I think that they're all going to play, especially those first 2 defenders. And because the floor for those defenders has been raised a little bit, I think that's good enough that I'm happy to just wing it a little bit on the bench and use my transfers on my strongest 11. So hopefully that makes sense. Obviously, feel free to disagree. Like, it's not a one size fits all, one answer. It's just my interpretation on how DEFCON could help me, especially with those defenders on the cheaper side of life. So Anderson, Esteve, maybe a Gahey as well could be good for it. I think that that's the way I'm going to play it. So moving down, so don't understand the Ndiaye pick. Yeah, fair enough. I get that. There are lots of other good 6.5 million mids. In fact, what I'll do here is go to midfielders. We'll have a look at some of the 6.5s. I think I've got a question on that as well. So we'll answer that here. If I reset all the projections, actually, just so we've got a fair whack at it. So yeah, so 6.5 million midfielders, there are lots of good options. And Ndiaye is not by any means the standout pick. I think he's in the batch of good picks, but you could go elsewhere. Enzo hasn't really been talked about by anyone, but because of his expected minutes and because of some set pieces, I believe as well, he actually ranks really highly on the 6.5s for the first 6 or 7 game weeks. Ndiaye does come in second of the 6.5s. Tielemans interestingly above both of them, but only because they're assuming he gets penalties. Ndiaye gets good expected minutes. The data in terms of XG isn't brilliant, but the market projections are suggesting that should tick up a little bit this season. And another thing that I noticed in the data is he was very poor in the underlying attacking data until David Moyes came in. But when David Moyes did arrive, he ticked up to about 0.43 XGI per 90. So it was a significant upgrade. And I think the markets reflect that in their projections. So over the first 6 game weeks, we're expecting an average of 0.29 XG per 90 and 0.16 XA per 90. It's not box office. It's about 0.36, 0.37, something like that. Is that right, actually? Hang on, to 0.45, 0.46, sorry. So just under an attack and return every other game for the first 6. Obviously boosted by penalties, obviously also boosted by some decent fixtures. But he's not a standout good pick at 6.5. I think I like him because he's on penalties and you might spike some positive variance there. And I also think he's a bit of a baller as well, to be completely frank. I think he's a very good player. And I also think that Everton are... well, I'd expect them to have a pretty good season this year. I think they've signed well in the transfer market, and I think they're on an upwards trajectory. So, Ndiaye, not a standout pick, but a good pick. I think a solid pick. You could also look at Ismail Assar, who I think is a very good pick. You've got Paquetá, who, again, a little bit cheaper, but West Ham fans are saying he's looked really good in pre-season. Obviously, the gambling stuff is out of the way. Getting good minutes could be a really interesting pick that nobody is talking about. You've got Mitoma, terrible on DEFCON, but decent on the underlying attacking returns. You've got Rice and Rodri, who are very average on the attacking returns, but great on the DEFCON, especially Rodri if he gets good minutes. The one that I don't know if I can really get on board with is Kudus. I just think there's too many questions at the moment. Let me know in the chat what you think, by the way. I'm happy to have people kind of disagree with me on Kudus, because I did get a bit of hate on X about it when I said I didn't really get the hype. I don't think he's a bad pick by any means, but I just think there are question marks that I'd want to resolve before picking him. Like after 4 or 5 game weeks, I'm happy to go there, but he's never really been a great FPL asset before, not a standout FPL asset, and his underlying attacking data historically hasn't been brilliant either. So if we go back, let's go back to here and go to the transfers page quickly, because I think we can get the historic returns. I mean, the UI is not great, is it? Let's be honest, but we can at least get the historic returns on screen now. So last season in 2,500 minutes, admittedly in a poorer side, got 9 attacking returns at an XGI of 9.64. Season before that, he did get 17 attacking returns, but an XGI at 8.54. So that is pretty low. So he's never been someone that gets like loads and loads of attacking returns or fantastic data. So I'm willing for that to change. I'm absolutely happy for that to kind of tick upwards in the next few game weeks, but I kind of want to see that first. It also seems that with the Maddison injury, with the Kulusevski injury, that maybe they've lost a lot of creativity in that side as well. So maybe they're going to struggle a little bit more going forwards. Perhaps, as Lamsource says in the chat, maybe that means he's more nailed with those players gone, and maybe he becomes the creative force. So there's an argument that maybe he becomes a better pick because of those injuries. But I think there are enough question marks there that I would want to wait and see, perhaps. I'm not massively convinced to go there in game week 1 just yet. I know it's a great fixture, so you might get yourself a 13, 14 point return off of him straight off the bat, and I'm already behind. But I don't think that I will be that far behind on with Ndiaye, to be honest. He's got penalties which Kudus doesn't have. He only got 9 goals last season, I think. Let's have a look. Someone in the chat mentioned it as well. Let me have a look. Yeah, 9 goals last season. But I mean, fair enough, to be honest. I mean, I can't really disagree with that. He did overperform his XG. I get why some people just don't like him as a pick. I really do. And it's something I'm toying around with myself as well. He's not locked. Yeah, I mean, let's ask that in the chat. What's people's general feelings on Ndiaye? Do we think he's just overrated? Or do we think he's a solid pick? I really highly rate penalties. And I do also think he is a bit of a baller as well. I do like him as a player. So, yeah, I mean, he's not inspiring at 6.5, is he? If he was 6, I think it would just be easy. But when you've got a penalty taker, who gets good minutes, I think it's enough for me over some of the other picks. I think the other pick I do like is Ismail Assar at 6.5. He's got great underlying attacking data. Last season, he was brilliant. Let's see if he's on this first sheet here. He is, yeah. So he got 15 attacking returns at an XGI of 17.64. That is good. I think the only thing that puts me off a little bit is those opening few fixtures. But then again, Sunderland in Game Week 4, West Ham in Game Week 5, and that 2.3% owned, that might be the answer, to be fair. That is not a bad alternative. Declan Rice as well. You could absolutely look at him. I don't know what his data was like last season. I don't think it was great. Let's see if he's on this first page here. I mean, yeah, 9.14. It's just, yeah. He was in one of my drafts, to be fair. I'm not inspired by that opening run. I think after Game Week 6 is out of the way, I could see a world where Declan Rice in that number 8 role could be really interesting. He's also on some set pieces. We know he's a fantastic free kick taker as well. So there is that. And that is a great run after Game Week 7. So yeah, maybe. If you're looking at postponing the wild card, you could just run him through this little patch here, Game Weeks 3 to 6. It's not looking great, but you could run him through and just hope that he ticks along with some defcons, maybe. Might get the odd attacking return, you never know. I also have a funny feeling Rodri's going to be a good option as well. Fantastic on the defensive contributions. The season before last, when he was actually playing, obviously got injured last season, got a decent XGI per night. Well, a decent XGI, 18 attacking returns. Not bad. I think it's just the fitness concern, isn't it? Like, we just don't know whether or not he's going to get 90 week in, week out. Let's see what people are saying about Ndiaye in the chat. Ross is Sar's my favourite. Yeah, fair. I can see it. I really can. He's got great XGI out of all of them. Yeah, he's just mentioned that in the chat as well. XGI out of all of the midfielders. 5th best out of all of them. So that's at no price point either. Rice will play further forward, says Josh. Yeah, he probably will, especially now they've signed Zubimendi. He'll get more free reign to move forward. So yeah, Rice could be due a very good season. What else we've got? Yeah, Nixie says SARS fixtures are the issue. I get that. Ndiaye is on page 2 of the midfielders list for a reason. Pricey, yeah, fair play, Nobby. I don't disagree with that. Ndiaye is a funny one. I just can't get over the feeling that just having that pen taker is going to be quite valuable. But he's not locked. I could move away from him. I could be maybe convinced away from him in one of these live streams. You guys are fairly convincing, to be fair. Interestingly, Donny in the chat says, I haven't actually listened to the correspondent for Everton yet for Planet FPL. By the way, shout out to Planet FPL's Correspondence Week. It's absolutely awesome. It's so good. All 20 clubs in detail with a fan from each of them with an FPL lens. It is absolutely quality viewing. I really do advise that you go check that out if you can. If there's any specific team that you've got questions on, that is probably the best way to play it. Go over to them, listen to that show, and you will get all the information you need. So Donny in the chat, the reason that I bring that up is because he says the Everton correspondent, Sean, said that the X minutes for Ndiaye aren't that great. Interesting. If that's the case, I will have to check that out. I will have to have a listen of that, Donny. So thanks for the recommendation. If that's the case, then maybe we are over-baking Ndiaye. So actually, with that in mind, let's assume that his minutes aren't actually as great as we think. So let's bring this down here on the little graph, if you can see what I'm doing here. So maybe he's got a 75% chance of hitting 60 minutes, maybe only a 30% chance of hitting 90. Let's apply that to all. Look how far he drops. That is hilarious. That is so far. So it really doesn't take much. It really doesn't take much at all, does it? He could be maybe a little bit overhyped. He is in my draft at the moment. This is the problem. Do I need to have a rethink on Ndiaye? Maybe. I mean, he drops below Kudus, who, yeah, I've got my reservations on, but maybe Kudus is a better pick than him if the minutes aren't there. You've got Rice ahead of him, Matoma ahead of him, Sarr, Enzo, all of them decent picks. Even Iwobi's ahead of him as well now. Oh, well, okay, even. even to him. Anderson's ahead of him. Doesn't take much. I haven't dropped him by that much either. Like, the expected minutes, I haven't exactly toggled with that too much. It's only gone down a shade. So, yeah, maybe. Interesting. And they have signed well this summer, so maybe there is an argument that his minutes do drop a bit. If that's the case, yeah, maybe we have to reconsider that. So yeah, thanks, chat. That's very interesting. That's very interesting to have. And I like, people are saying, "Oh, it's your team." Yeah, it is, but I do want your opinion. I'm not calling myself an expert here. I'm an enthusiast. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. It's always interesting to get the back and forth, and I'm always keen for strong arguments either way. Like, I want that argument. I want that information. So yeah, thank you very much. That's very interesting. Amad Diallo, another option at 6.5 mentioned in the chat. Let's see where he lists on here. I can't imagine he's too high, but I imagine he's not too high because of the expected minutes. Yeah, here we go. So we've got Amad. Yeah, the expected minutes are lower. So yeah, the 0 minutes, he's only up at 8. He's at 86. So let's say we know he starts. We absolutely know he starts, which I think is fair. Straight away, he goes up to 3.33. So that's actually not that bad. He's got a couple of good game weeks in there. Game week 3 against Burnley's a good one, 4.19. So yeah, not bad on Amad Diallo. Could be an interesting option. Who else we got? Soberslai, maybe? Okay, Soberslai, interesting. And the same with McAllister here as well, actually, whilst we're on the subject. Do we know they start? Liverpool have just got such a stacked lineup. If you think about it, there's only 11 positions. Like, Soberslai and McAllister, at least one of them's got to drop out shortly. Like, most weeks. They'll get minutes, but are they going to get good enough minutes? McAllister's apparently struggling with a little bit of an injury, so Soberslai might be okay to begin with. But if Liverpool play with kind of those two, I suppose you call them 8s, maybe like one's a little bit more advanced, almost 10-ish, but they play with their 2 wingers, so you've got Salah on one side, you've got left winger, probably Gakpo on the other, you've got Ekitike in that centre-forward role right now, but that could be Isak if he comes in. So again, even more congestion there. Bring that back to the 8s. You've got Soberslai, you've got McAllister, and you've now got Wirtz as well. I think most of us would agree that Wirtz is going to start most weeks. And then you've got McAllister, who might not be fit for game week 1, but he will get minutes, and we're not just picking a side for game week 1. And then you've got Soberslai. And considering how highly rated McAllister was last season, he had a brilliant season. Like, not in terms of FPL necessarily, but he was phenomenally good. And a lot of Liverpool fans were raving about him all season long. So McAllister, he only got 11 attacking returns, so not a great FPL asset, but a great player. So is McAllister going to lose his place, or is he going to get it straight back when he's fit? I think probably the latter, which probably means Soberslai's minutes are up in the air a little bit. Now, that's not to say he won't get minutes. He will play, but we really need like at least 70, 80 minutes a match to make a player like him worthwhile, I think. So I think for me, Soberslai is one that I probably wouldn't highly recommend yet, unless something changes, where maybe McAllister's out longer term and Soberslai's place becomes a little bit more guaranteed. Or maybe he just plays so well in the first couple of game weeks that he just locks his place in the side. That is absolutely possible. So, Martin, hopefully that answers your question. We've got Dewsbury Hall questions in the chat as well. I wonder, actually, is he... I mean, this would be quick if they've done this, but let's have a look. Is he... Game week 1 Leeds? Yeah, he has been priced up for Everton, so the market has reacted to it. At 5 million, it's not bad to be averaging over 3 points a game, you know. And they're expecting him to get good minutes. Not sure on the goal threat, 0.09, 0.14 on the assists. Okay. Not bad. What's he on the CBIT? Pretty low on the CBIT. Okay, I mean, 5 million. I don't dislike it. I probably won't have him if I have NDI, because I don't want to double up on Everton midfield in a game week 1 draft when I can pick from all 20 clubs. That seems like maybe a dereliction of duty somewhat. But in isolation at 5 million, I think he's one of the better picks at that price point. You've got Baleba, who's obviously subject to transfer speculation. I think maybe Christie was an option. I don't know whether he's even fit at the moment, Ryan Christie at Bournemouth. You might have one or two others. I think Lefay at Sunderland might have been interesting. I think Dewsbury Hall's up there at 5 million. If you've only got that budget to spend and you can't spend 5.5, I think Dewsbury Hall is definitely an interesting option. So what else we got in the chat? And I will get to, so I've got some more questions. Let's actually go over to that static graph now. So I've previously collected a few questions that I'll go through maybe as talking points, and I did promise I'd answer them on this chat, so I better get on with it at some point. But if you've got any of your own, throw them in as well, and we'll kind of off the cuff be answering them as we go. What else have we got? Let's have a look. So Palmer just got an assist for Esteval's. Is it Esteval? Let me know. Anyone who's got the pronunciation for Esteval. Yeah, I think that's probably right. He looks quality, by the way. I don't know if I can put up the FB ref data for Esteval on stream without it getting copyrighted, maybe. But go check it out if you've got a chance. I'd be pretty excited about him if I was a Chelsea fan. He looks very good. So yeah, I wonder if he gets good minutes at some point this season. If he does, obviously that will impact maybe a Neto. It could impact a number of Chelsea players, to be honest. But yeah, he could be another one to look out for the future. Adingra as well is a good one a good answer on the 5.5s. I do like the look of Adingra. He's here at 3.45 in the first 6. Good minutes by the looks of it. Obviously good fixture. You've got West Ham, Burnley, Brentford, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa. I do have respect for people who are going Adingra from the start. I think he's a very interesting option. The reason I've gone Anderson, I've already explained it, is just because of that kind of taking myself away from the game of trying to pick the correct 5.5. I'm just going for the steady Eddie that I know is going to get consistent points, if not box office points. But Adingra could outperform him in the first 6. He could. And if that's the case and he looks like the best one, then I can get over to him eventually. That being said, Sunderland's fixtures won't last forever, so it might be one that I miss out on, possibly. What else we got in the chat? So Xhaka, an option. He'll get good minutes, you'd think, already wearing the captain's armband in Sunderland's most recent game, I think. So he looks locked in for minutes. Good on the defensive contributions, perhaps, as well. Might not be too bad on the attacking data either. Dewsbury Hall could be this year's Rodgers, says Trini. Possibly. I mean, that is a shout. If that comes true, wow. I mean, that would be a hell of a player. It is worth noting that Dewsbury Hall at Leicester, the season they got promoted, was ridiculously good. Like, absolutely crazy data. And obviously, that's why he got picked up by Maresca and dragged over to Chelsea with him. Didn't quite make it at Chelsea, I think it's fair to say, but there's a player in there. And in a team like Everton, he could definitely stand out. At 5 million, again, no problem with saying that he could be a good pick. What else we got? So we've got... Yeah, can we take a moment to applaud FPL Tower's pricing this season? I think, I did an underpriced or best value video the other day, and I have to say I struggled to pick out 7 or 8 players on that. Most of the players are around about the right price point. There are a few that stood out for me. I think Eze might be 0.5 underpriced. I think maybe Anderson at Fulham's 0.5 under. There's a couple out there, but not a lot. And it's all by just a small gap as well. No doubt at some point this season, there will be like a few picks that do end up being significantly under or overpriced, but there's no way of knowing that before the season starts. Like, no one predicted Cole Palmer 2 seasons ago would become the lock guaranteed starter on penalties for Chelsea within a season. So I wouldn't necessarily call that a pricing mistake. And we will get 1 or 2 of those kind of things throughout the season you'd expect. But yeah, I'm really happy with the pricing this season. I think they've done a great job. So yeah, Nobby, good shout out there. We've got, what else have we got? Oh, score prediction for tomorrow for the Mighty Saints against Wrexham at home, opening the season. I didn't get tickets. If anyone's got a hookup for tickets for Southampton tomorrow, let me know. But yeah, that's more in hope than expectation. I am going to go quite a few more times this season. I've made a commitment with my brother to go to at least 4 of the home games before Christmas and at least 4 of the home games after Christmas. So we'll see what we can do about that. Who else we got? So Verts in the chat as an underpriced player. Few people saying Verts. Have a beers in the chat. Hey mate, how's it going? We've got Nixie saying Verts. Yeah, I think Verts is a good shout as well. I actually missed that out of the video. I should have probably mentioned him, to be honest. But yeah, I think he's a good shout for underpriced. In fact, I'm on the wrong screen now. Let me go back. What I can do is drag this all the way back up. The markets are really hot on Florian Wirtz. I'm really, really interested in him. They think he gets good minutes. He's obviously got great underlying attacking data. 0.28 goal threat, 0.41 assist threat. That is very high. That is very, very high. I'd say he's probably, and we can check this, he is the highest expected assist for the first 6 game weeks, 2.23, ahead of Salah. That is crazy high. So yeah, I mean, he could be arguably underpriced. He's would be expected to average something like 5 points a game in the first 6. Again, it's just, it's just algorithms. It's just predictions. It's not going to be completely spot on, but the market odds do tend to be fairly accurate. So as a predictive tool anyway, obviously it's not going to be bang on. But Wirtz, underpriced, I kind of agree with that. I think that's a really good shout. Well done for those of you who shouted that one out. Who else we got? So we've got Jed Spence in the starting lineup for Spurs. I think a doggy's out for a little while, right? So if he is, then Jed Spence possibly, yeah. I'm not an expert on Spurs at the moment though. I need to read up on that. So I couldn't confidently predict that or tell you that. The people you need to go talk to are above average FPL. They will know that very, very quickly because they're massive Tottenham fans. Do go check out their YouTube channel if you get the chance. Above average FPL, they do some great stuff. One of the very few podcasts that I will listen to every single week, no matter what. So yeah, I highly recommend them. Very good on the eye test stuff. They think about FPL in a different way as well. So very, very hot on them. Yeah, so a lot of people saying Wirtz. Yeah, the predictions on Southampton. So we've got Saint 2-0 in the chat from Sam Carr. We've got 2-1 from Nobby. I'm a bit of a pessimist, if it was any other club other than Wrexham, I'd be like, yeah, okay, fine. Of the same level, of the same quality. I'd say, yeah, we probably will take them down. But we haven't looked great in pre-season. And Wrexham are just one of those teams that they're just on such a roll at the moment. I'm just a little bit worried. Maybe... I'll say 2-1. I'll say 2-1. It would be horrible to be wearing the new Saints kit with Saints badge in the background and saying we're not going to win first day of the season. So I'm going to go with it, but less than confident. What else we got in the chat? Actually, whilst I wait for the chat to filter through a little bit, I did have a few questions for you. So before we get into the questions on the stream, which again, I've got a few of them here that we can run through together. And I do want your thoughts on it, by the way, as well. So first question. So I'll go back to my team for this actually, because it's probably a bit easier to showcase. Out of a Bruno Fernandez, a Watkins, or a Wirtz, who do you expect to be the highest point scorer after 6 game weeks? Bruno Fernandez, Wirtz, or Ollie Watkins? All around the same price point. Obviously, there's 0.5 in it for Wirtz, so you can weigh that into your thinking if you like. But first 6 game weeks, go over. I won't go over to Solio now because that people start using that to give them the answer, I think. But I think that's a really interesting discussion because you could save the extra 0.5 by taking Bruno down to Wirtz, for instance. You lose penalties, but he is so good. Like, Wirtz is so good. I don't think it's going to be a problem crossing over to the Premier League. I just don't see that as an issue. Already in the chat, so what have we got? We've got Bruno, Watkins, Bruno, Watkins. No one on Wirtz so far. That's very interesting. Very interesting. I mean, it's good confirmation bias for me because I've got both of them in my draft right now. So that's great. Like, if people genuinely think Bruno Watkins is the way to go, I'm loving that. I do have a feeling Wirtz is going to be a hell of a pick, though. North says Wirtz, fixture's better. There is an argument for that. I mean, the game weeks, I'm using Salah as a proxy. Game weeks 2 and 3, not great, but longer horizon, and I did say 6 game weeks. I'd say 4 out of those 6 are good, and Newcastle might not be the worst anyway. Arsenal is a tough one, but it's at home, so you'd expect Liverpool to probably have a decent chance of scoring 1 or 2. I think they're good enough fixtures. I think they're good enough that Wirtz is still a good pick through those first 6. So I don't hate that at all. Gwiz says I'm on Wirtz and Watkins. Yeah. So again, I'm on my. Am I on my draft? I'm on the wrong screen. Sorry, guys. So I'm on my draft here. If I take Bruno out, put Wirtz in, that gives me an extra 0.5 to play with. That could be Strand Larsen up to Evan Nilsson. Quite like that. It could be Estev up to another 4.5 to give me a bit more bench depth. It could also be maybe Munoz up to another 6 million, or an Anderson up to a 5. The other way I could spend it, which kind of depends on fitness, but I do like it if he's fit, is Ndiaye up to Rodgers, who, I mean, we've had a lot of talk about Ndiaye in the chat already. I think it's fair to say that opinions are split at best on Ndiaye. So maybe I could drop Bruno down to Wirtz and Ndiaye up to Rodgers. Would that score more? Would that be better, do you think? Is it too much to have double Villa, perhaps? I don't hate it. I also don't hate Semenyo, by the way. He's not been talked about by anyone. Anyone. I haven't seen him in a single draft. But, I mean, look at the data last season. Expected to get 14 XGI and got 18 attacking returns. A bit of like, you know, confirmation bias there because he overperformed. I don't want to say he's going to do that again. Okay, game week 1, Liverpool away, it's not ideal. But then look at the fixtures after that. Through to, is it? Yeah, game week 10 is when it toughens up a bit. But all the way through to game week 9, that's a decent little run of fixtures. Bournemouth have lost a lot of players, but mainly in their defence. And obviously that will affect them going forward. Like, it's not an isolated problem where they've lost their defence, but they can still attack just as well. Like, there are channels of play, there are patterns of play that do rely on ball-playing defenders, so they might not build up as well. They've lost Kirkes. Obviously, they're signing replacements, but it will take a while. So maybe Semenyo's not quite as good as he was. I still get the feeling at 7 million, the goal threat is there. I don't think he's an awful pick. I do also agree with what Nixie's saying in the chat, by the way. I think he might be 0.5 overpriced. I think if he was 6.5, he'd be in a lot more drafts and probably in the conversation with an Ndiaye and Assar as well, for instance. So yeah, I think possibly 0.5 overpriced, but at times I still think he's going to be decent value for money. Evan Nilsson at 7 million, a good differential. Yep. I think that's interesting. Yeah, very, very good. Also, what about Bowen? That's a good question, actually. I wonder, have I got any specific questions on Bowen in here? I actually can't remember. Because it is about time that I actually do start talking about some of these. A few of these we've already gone through, luckily. Who have we got? It's related enough, I suppose. We can start off with this as one of the questions. So, FPL Principle, yesterday, when I threw out the questions across Blue Sky and X, do go follow me on those, by the way, in the top left at some point, it scrolls around, is what sort of minutes can we expect from Füllkrug? I think that's an interesting question. I'm not massively confident on Füllkrug just yet. I'm willing, again, to change my mind on it, but it's just another question mark, right? So I'm trying to minimize the amount of question marks I've got at the start of the season. And I think, have they signed Callum Wilson now? I'm pretty sure they signed Wilson, right? Yeah, they've got Wilson in as well. So I don't expect Wilson to be the starter. Obviously, he's only just signed for them, but he will take minutes off of Füllkrug at some point. Almost no question there, because he won't be taking minutes off of Bowen too much. So Füllkrug is going to be a slight minutes risk. I think he will do better than he did last season, and he's got good goal threat for when he's on the pitch, like per 90. But I don't know how many 90s he's going to be getting. So for me, out of the West Ham picks, I think Bowen's the go-to. I think 8 million is a good price for him, and he's got a good set of opening fixtures. If you look at the strikers, he is actually kind of up there with some of the better strikers in terms of what you'd expect from him in the first few game weeks. So it's a good question. And I suppose for me, it's whether or not you want that price point covered. So in my current draft, I don't, because I've got, let's reset this, by the way. So I've got, yeah, move back over. So yeah, so I've currently got a 9 million forward and a 6.5. I do like that Strand Larsen price point. I do think that is quite a nice price point. I would like to have 7.5 or 8 million covered, if I'm honest. But to do that, I would either have to sacrifice Watkins or massively upgrade Giu to... Am I on midfielders? I am on midfielders. Let's go across to Bowen. So let's bring him in. So straight away, I need to find 3.5 million. That is not easy to do in this draft. So it probably has to come out of Bruno, realistically. And that means I've only got 5.5 to spend. Now, I think... Well, I mean, it depends, I suppose. But I think the balance is better with a more expensive midfielder here and Giu, who is basically just rotting on my bench most weeks. But... Who would I have as a Bruno replacement at 5.5? That I suppose that's the question. I mean, there's not a lot. I mean, you do have to physically go to the second page to even get to 5.5s. And I've already got my Elliot Anderson, which I quite like. I mean, maybe I have already talked up Adingra a little bit. You could go with Adingra, or you could go with an Arias, to be fair, as well. I don't hate Arias. Obviously, he hasn't got any Premier League experience, but he's a good player. So I could be tempted to go for one of those two, but I'm just not sure it fits my structure, basically. That would be my answer. I don't dislike him as a pick, though. If you can cover that price point, it's good for a couple of reasons. One, Bowen has some good opening fixtures, and he ranks pretty well in terms of the players expected to do well, the forwards expected to do well at the start of the season. But also the second benefit is that you can move down from him to any of the hot 7.5 million strikers without having to worry about whether or not they increase in price. Because if, let's say you've got João Pedro to begin with, and for whatever reason, you want to move over to Jean-Philippe Mateta after a couple of game weeks, well, if either of them have moved in price down or upwards, so if Mateta's gone up 0.1 million and you don't have anything in the bank, well, you're kind of out of luck. Like, you don't really have any way of doing that, barring using 2 free transfers. So Bowen is good to cover that off because, yes, I mean, it's 0.5 you can't spend elsewhere in the meantime, but you can then downgrade. So I do quite like that. It's not the structure I'm currently going with, but I have nothing against that whatsoever. What else have we got? So we've kind of answered the full crew question, I think. Oh, by the way, I've done it yet again, guys. Been going on for over an hour now. I think I've only asked once for people to like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you could do so, that would be massively appreciated, especially liking it right now if you are already subscribed, because then YouTube will basically start showing it to other people. So that would be massively, massively appreciated. But either way, if you're enjoying the show and you're not already subscribed, I would also massively appreciate it if you did subscribe to the channel. It would be massively helpful. If I can get to 4,100 tonight, that would be great. I haven't actually done a live check in a while. Wow, I've gone up 8. So yeah, just today in this chat, I've gone up 8. So I'm 26 off. If I could get those 26 tonight, I'd be really, really buzzing. I'm not expecting it, by the way, but if I could, that would be great. Some West Ham fans in the chat, G-Wiz saying Wilson's back up. Yeah, I agree. He is going to be back up, but I don't think he'll get no minutes. And because he won't get no minutes, he probably will steal some off of Füllkrug. So it doesn't make Füllkrug a busted flush or a bad pick necessarily. And he could get all the returns you could ever want for 6 million for just 60 minutes, 70 minutes a match. But I think at just 0.5 extra, you can get to Strand Larsen, who might not be guaranteed penalties, but I think there's a good chance he has penalties and his minutes should be better. So I think I'm willing to use the extra 0.5 for now. And then if Füllkrug or who's the other hot one? Thiago as well. If either of them end up being a really good pick at 6, a bit like Bowen down to the 7.5s, I can go from Strand Larsen down to either one of those very, very easily. So I quite like that. Yeah, Nixie, yeah, good point. Nixie says, if you go Arias, surely not double up on Wolves. Yeah, I would have to do some shuffling. I don't think I could go double Wolves attack. That does seem like a little bit much. So yeah, that was more just as an example, I think. I don't think I'd go Arias alongside Strand Larsen. I'd have to do some shuffling. But yeah, absolutely correct. What else we got? Dan James at 5.5. Got 21 goal involvements last season. Yeah, one to keep an eye on, I think. One, I think I'll probably leave that for the time being, just to see whether or not he's like locked in, getting 90 minutes a match, whether his data stays consistently good, because we've seen him in the Premier League before and he's never really been a phenomenal pick. I'm willing to give that a wait and see. But Leeds were great last season. There is a chance that he ends up being a very good pick. So yeah, don't hate that. Canyon Croft asks when I plan on bench boosting. That is a very good question. We haven't gone over to FPL.team yet, but I will do so now. So this is that game week 1? Let's refresh so the teams are in the right place. There we go. We've got all of the kits uploaded. That is beautiful. So that's game week 1, as you can see. I think that's my correct draft. It is. If I go over to game week 2, this would be my plan for a bench boost. It's not exciting. It's not special. I talked about it at the start of the stream. I think the big thing for bench boost in the first half of the season, not so much the second half when there are double game weeks and more upside, but in the first half of the season, the thing I'm really adamant about is I don't want to spend too much planning, too much effort or money, budget on my bench boost. So if it's going to take loads of transfers, if it's going to compromise the integrity of my normal starting 11 too much because I've spread the funds and I've got less value in my starting 11, or if it's going to mean that I'm planning out some sort of structure that is like a hybrid between a bench boost in game week 1 and then for weeks I'm sort of shipping off one player at a time to get that value back into the starting 11, I just don't think the upside is worth it in the first half of the season with a bench boost. I just don't see how a bench boost is going to... I mean, there will be some examples who score 20, 30 points, I'm sure. But I think the average result of a bench boost is going to be somewhere between 10 to 15, 16 points this year. And that might even be on the optimistic side as well. If I can come out of a bench boost with 8 to 12 points and not have to spend a single transfer or any of my money on my bench, then I think I'm okay. Like, I don't think that I'm massively worried about that. This bench boost involves 2 Burnley players at home to Sunderland and 1 Sunderland player away at Burnley. So that's not great. Obviously, there's conflicts of interest there. So I can't... it does limit the upside. And then Anderson at home to Man United. So Anderson, I would expect defensive contributions against United. So I'm expecting maybe a 4-pointer from him. Obviously, no guarantees. If I can get a clean sheet out of Burnley against Sunderland, then the bench boost is a massive success. If I don't get a clean sheet out of that, then I might only get like 6 to 8 points on the bench boost. I don't think that's... it's not good. I'm not going to say that's a success. But also, if it means that I'm not using any transfers and either side of the bench boost, and I've got the strongest possible 11, and I don't have to worry about anything else at that point, and it just gets out of the way, I think I'm okay with it. I think I'm probably only going to be losing 4 or 5 points on the average crowd anyway, even if this goes wrong. So... yeah, look, it's obviously not ideal. I'm not expecting wonders from the bench boost. The other thing that is worth noting here that I did mention earlier on is, although I'm planning on bench boosting with this to begin with, I'm not committed to it. So if Dravka, for whatever reason, doesn't start game week 1, I will probably just say, right, I'm not bench boosting game week 2. It's not worth the risk. I'm just not going to bother. And I do expect that Dravka will become the starting keeper for Burnley. And I do also expect Gio to become the starting forward for Sunderland at some point. And because I've got 2 Burnley defenders in there already, so goalkeeper, defender, all I really need to look out for on a bench boost week is, well, which week do Burnley have a decent home fixture? And whenever they do, I'll probably just hit the bench boost that week, knowing that Anderson will probably get 3 or 4 points a week on average, regardless of the fixture. And then Giu, who knows? I mean, I might spike a return, I might get lucky. So I'm not going to overly obsess about it. I'm not going to try and perfect it. I'm not going to refine it. All I'm going to do is make sure that I've got a playable bench and that I'm not committing too many funds to it. It looks like Game Week 2 is going to be a decent one. Not great, but decent for a bench that basically doesn't cost any money. I think I've spent 0.5 extra on top of what the bare minimum is. So I think that's fine. Right, so that hopefully answers that question. Let's go back to the static graphics. Elliot Anderson, we've kind of already talked about Elliot Anderson. So hopefully, if Milk_FPL is watching this or is watching this in the future, I think too long didn't read. Elliot Anderson is definitely the second coming of Frank Lampard. I don't think there's any questions about that. If anything, I expect him to score more goals than Frank Lampard. No, I think he's a good steady Eddie pick. We've already kind of discussed it. I've discussed it in a few videos as well. I like Elliot Anderson for his price. I think he's boring and probably not going to be the top scoring 5.5, but he'll be in the top 3 or 4. And that for me will be enough until I know which other 5.5 is going to be the standout, like breakout talent at a cheap price. So hopefully that answers the Elliot Anderson hype question. Favorite 4.5 defenders. I'm going to throw this over to the chat actually as well, to keep you guys on your toes. Who's in your squad right now as the 4.5? If you've even got a 4.5. Anderson, not popular, but I think he is my favourite, honestly. I think he's the best one. But there are loads of options. We can look at Solio as well. Who have you got in your squad? Who have you got any 4.5s? Are you looking at a couple of 4.5s? I've got Juve on the graphic as well, who, I mean, won't get defcons, but I like him as an attacking option. He looks really good at West Ham on the other side to Wan-Bissaka, who is at about 30% ownership, but it seems to be dropping slowly now. So we've got Juve in the chat. We've got Dorgu. I think if Ross is still hanging around, he's very hot on Dorgu. Again, great attacking threat. I think he was putting up XGIs of like 0.4, 0.5 consecutively towards the back end of last season. So Dorgu could be an interesting pick. Gakpo as well, new signing for Brighton, that left back. We're all scarred by Barco last season, but I think he actually does have legs. I think he's the one that could actually break out and be a really nice 4.5 option at Brighton. I will probably wait and see on him until they've got really standout good fixtures. But his data at Club Brugge was phenomenal. Very, very interesting to see that. Dan Wells in the chats asks, am I on bench boost game week 1? I'm game week 2 at the moment with my current draft. If you go back about a minute or two, you'll see my explanation for that. Hopefully that's helpful. What else have we got? Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Van der Ven as well. Van der Ven and Konza. So Van der Ven, I think, is due to have a better season last year if he can stay fit. I do quite like that. Wan-Bissaka, I think Wan-Bissaka and Konza rotate very well together. So that could be interesting. Obviously, Juve as a Wan-Bissaka alternative. I think I'll be tempted to go with Juve now, honestly. But I do quite like Wan-Bissaka. Who else we've got? Other Gunner says no 4.5 defenders. I think that's a valid way of playing it as well. I mean, there's a lot of value in the higher priced defenders this season. Murillo, Van Dijk, Munoz, and then 2 4.0s on the bench. I think that's valid. I'm completely on board with that. 2 4.0s. Got to be Anderson. Got to be De Kuyper, or Kauper. De Kuyper, I think it is. I did listen to the way of pronouncing it beforehand, but I keep forgetting. Kyoda, that's an interesting one. I haven't seen many people talking about Kyoda. Let's go over to Solio quickly, and we'll stress test this against what the markets are saying as well, because I think that's an interesting way of doing it. Right, so we've got... Yeah, we'll go 6 game week average at the moment. So Anderson comes out on top, but not by tons. Whilst you guys look through that. I'm going to have a sip of beer because yet again, I just have not stopped talking. That is my problem. Still got like 3/4 of that left. It's warm now. Not a good idea. Don't stream and drink, guys. Bad idea. So yeah, we've got Gahey, 3.4. Got Agbadou, 3.3. Agbadou's not really been talked about by many. Very locked in on the minutes. Not great fixtures, it must be said. Man City first up, Bournemouth away. I mean, actually, no. I mean, to be fair, I say that. Man City's the bad fixture. And then after that, it does turn a lot nicer. I mean, Newcastle's not great, but Leeds is fine. Tottenham, it's not bad. Pardon me. Konza, Mavropanos. Not feeling Mavropanos, I'm not going to lie. You've got Wan-Bissaka there. I mean, Juve doesn't really appear on this yet. I would assume that will be because, yeah, the expected minutes are low. So if let's bring Juve up to, okay, he's a starter. Something like that. Cool. Right. Now let's bring him back into the mix with everyone else. Where does he rank? He's up there. So Juve is up there. I like that. Ballard's an interesting one. I'd imagine that's because he's locked in Sunderland's team and he will get defensive contribution points as well. But I can't really highly recommend him, to be honest. I like Anderson. I really do like Anderson. Juve I like. Wan-Bissaka I quite like. Agbadou might be going under the radar a little bit if you can bench him in game week 1. Gahey or Richards if Gahey leaves. Senesi could be interesting. Obviously looks a little bit more likely to start matches this season and he's very good on the defensive contributions. Then you're going down to like Van de Ven at just under 3 points a game. Obviously that Burnley game's a very good starting point though. Yeah, what do you guys think in the chat? What are you saying? Chalabar, maybe one to watch. Is Richards nailed? I think so. I don't see why he wouldn't be. Because they kind of play that 3 at the back, don't they? Where it's Lacroix, Richards, Gahey. Especially if Gahey leaves, Richards should be even more nailed. I mean, I'd never like to guarantee anything. It feels like Richards is the most removable of those 3. I think the one that could come out. But I still feel like he's done enough to be in the game. Who said there's 3.5 million players? There are not any 3.5 million players at the moment. Players will drop in price during the season. I don't think I've ever seen one drop as much as 3.5. But yeah, 4.5, unless I said 3.5. Did I say 3.5? I might have done accidentally. If I did, I'm sorry. That's very poor of me. But yeah, no, 4 is the minimum at the moment for defenders, and we might get some price drops from some of them at some point that will mean they end up at like 3.8, maybe 3.7 if we're lucky. Okay. So Van de Ven's quite popular in the chat. We've got Chalabar one to watch, Richards. Yeah, cool. Okay. I think generally people seem to be relatively confident on the 4.5s. Van de Ven's in there, Anderson's in there. Traffair. I'd imagine it's Traffair. Is meant to be amazing as well. I am very interested in keeping an eye on him. I'm not going to go with him from the start, but I am interested in him. He's coming out pretty well in a lot of people's thinking as well. I think, is it game week 1, Liverpool? Yeah. And then after that, it looks a lot more promising. If you look at the data, not bad either. Good assist threat, 0.16 expected assist threat per 90 over the first 6 game weeks. So yeah, very encouraging. So a couple of questions in the chat. What tool am I using? So this season, I am partnered. And again, this is not sponsored in any way. I asked them if I could partner with them with Solio Analytics. They are an FPL planning tool, and I can show you the planner if you like, but at the moment, because the season's not really started, I'm more interested in the data points. But it is absolutely amazing. And what the benefit of it is it's all plugged in with live market data. So very accurate market data from Rob T FPL, who we all know and love from the community. So it's powered by that, but also you can also input your own opinions. So that's, I think, the limitation some people have with like analytics and data like that is, okay, well, it's kind of just telling me what to do. Like, it's a bit boring. It kind of defeats the point of FPL. But what this tool does is like, okay, here's a base set of data, and you can edit it however you want, and it then will help you plan your side based on what you think is going to happen. So I used an example earlier. I think it was on Bruno, maybe. So I'll go back to the midfielders because it's a little bit more exciting than the defenders. So Bruno comes out really high on the averages at the moment. He's got good goals, good assists, blah blah blah. But let's say you think, okay, he might lose penalties this year. Well, fine. You can drag at the bottom of the screen here. You can drag this little slider down a little bit to represent him losing penalties. You can obviously decide how much that would go. And all of a sudden, Bruno comes down in the averages ever so slightly. He's still a good pick, but comes below Florian Wirtz. Whereas if I reset it here, you'll see he goes above Saka and Wirtz to over 5.5 a game. So that's the beauty of this tool. That's why I really wanted to work with them, and I'm so glad that they said that I'm allowed to use them in my videos and start promoting them. So yeah, I don't make any money from it. I'm not sponsored by them. I just really like the tool, and I'm glad that they let me use it because I think it really helps power my videos. So that's Solio Analytics. The link is actually in the description below, I think. I'm pretty confident I'll put it in below. If it's not in below and you can't find it, it's just fpl.solioanalytics.com. That's spelled SOLIO and then analytics.com. So do go check it out. Input your team ID. I think for absolutely everyone, the first month, or that it's free for a month at the moment, and then I think they're starting to do tiers after that. I think there's a free version after the first month, and then there's going to be like different tiers for paid. So yeah, first month is completely free, or like the first month right now is completely free, and then there's a free version after that, I believe. But I don't know if they've actually sorted all of that out yet. I think they're still figuring it all out. Right then, so we've kind of talked about Solio a little bit. That reminds me, I was going to do something on stream. So I'll go to big camera, which makes me look a bit weird, but oh well. We'll do that. So I've been saving this for the stream. I had Agent Manny on Club offering me a player. I don't know if any of you actually play Club. Do shout out in the chat if you're already playing it. It's like 3rd on the App Store at the moment, which I couldn't believe. I thought I was like the only one in the world playing it, but it's like literally 3rd behind all of the VPNs at the moment, which is quite funny. But yeah, it's doing really well. It's basically a fantasy football game like FPL, completely free to play. I'm playing it. They gave me, because I was playing it last season anyway, they got in touch and they were like, right, do you want an affiliate link? I was like, yeah, fine, go on then. So if you aren't playing it and you want to, it's basically just a fantasy football game where you can't really pick your own team. You kind of get given players and you build up your squad over time. Really interesting, really fun. And all I'm doing right now is doing a live, I don't know if you can actually see it. Can you see it? Yeah, you can see it. So you kind of meet an agent every 4 hours. So I'm going to meet this guy, Manny. If you play the game, you'll know who Manny is. He's bloody annoying. Do I get demonetized for saying bloody? I don't know, maybe. Anyway, right, so the player I've been given, interesting. So I've got Dorgu. There's got to be a better way of doing this than just showing you my phone like this. But actually, Dorgu, I would say, is a pretty good pick. So I'm going to sign him, put him in my squad, and I think that's decent. If you're on Club, then in the chat below, I've also put my mini league, which again, completely free to enter. All of this is completely free. So mini league is in the chat below for Club. Do go join my mini league. And I might do some like prizes throughout the season or something for it. Haven't really decided yet. Depends how many people join, I suppose. But yeah, if you've not joined it, links in the description. And if you had joined it, but you weren't in my league yet, again, links in the description. So yeah, go check that out. Edward asked for a squad reveal. I don't know whether you're saying that for club or not, or if you are saying it for club. That's my squad at the moment. I don't know if you can actually see it. I think that's actually pretty good. And yes, I do have Salah. He is on a loan for 1 week. But I'm still pretty happy to have him. I've also got Florian Wirtz. I got Florian Wirtz earlier today. I can't pay his wages at the moment because I'm over budget. But I still think I'm going to get there by the deadline. Maybe, just about. I'm like 5 million over budget. So we'll see. And if you play club, you'll know how much that is over budget. That's like a premium player over budget. So yeah, I'll see if I can maybe sell half my squad so I can incorporate Florian Wirtz. But I have been playing for a little while. It is worth noting. So yeah, my squad's looking okay at the moment because I had a lot of, I guess, money, like not real money, just game money saved up from last season. So I started upgrading my stadium quite quickly. So all of a sudden, Mane's actually quite good at sending me good players. Anyway, right, enough talking about club because you don't want to hear just about club all this time. But yeah, do go join that mini league if you get the chance. So back to some of these questions. I think we kind of answered the 4.5 million defender question. I like Anderson. I also like Juve. I also do quite like Gahey, Wan-Bissaka to an extent, and De Cooper as well. All very good. A few people in the chat saying they're joining my league on club. So yeah, thank you very much. That's great. I'll see you there. Yeah, the more the merrier, and like we might make some prizes for it throughout the season if we get a few people joining. What's our next question? I'm conscious I've been going for an hour and a half, by the way, so I will wrap up at some point in the next half an hour or so to get some dinner. But I'm quite enjoying it, so I'm in no rush whatsoever. So next question, will you be risking Solanke? I kind of have answered that by showing my squad earlier anyway. I don't currently have him. That doesn't mean I'm not going to go with him, to be fair. I'm still open to having him. Let me know in the chat what you think of Solanke. Is he a good pick at 7.5? Is he even the best 7.5? That's another question. Like, you could look at Jean-Philippe Mateta, might be on pens. João Pedro is obviously very highly owned, which again brings me on to, there's another question on here. Where is it? Yeah, so João Pedro, 52% ownership. Is he overhyped? Is it a little bit too much? Yeah, I do quite like João Pedro. I'm warming to him. I was very cold on him to begin with. But Chelsea fans do seem pretty adamant he's going to be a good pick. And he'll get good minutes, importantly. So maybe. But yeah, is Solanke worth the money now, given the injuries? It sounds like he's going to be back pretty soon. But is he going to be a little bit of a doubt, considering they've got the Super Cup on Wednesday and then Burnley on, I think it's the Saturday? Not sure. Nixie says, you've got Salah. I do have Salah. Not just on FPL. I've also got him in club as well. On a loan, but yeah, fine. We don't need to talk about that. Gakpo or Wirtz? Good question. Did we talk about Gakpo a little bit earlier on? I feel like we did. But we can talk about him very briefly again here. I think that's when I introduced club, wasn't it? So Gakpo, I do like him. Actually, what I'll do here, I'll do it by just Liverpool so we can have them kind of side by side. So Salah's obviously the standout pick. We know that. But afterwards, there is a drop-off to Wirtz, and then there's another drop-off to Gakpo. But as we discovered earlier on, the drop-off for Gakpo is mainly because the markets don't think he's going to get great minutes. And if you disagree with that, which honestly is a perfectly understandable opinion, I really would understand that. I do get it. So let's say you think he's got like a 80% chance of going past 60, maybe 85, and he's got like a 50% chance of getting to 90, then immediately he's a much better pick. And okay, he's not quite at the level of Wirtz. He's still like 0.6, 0.7 a game under Wirtz in terms of like the averages for the first 6. But he's also a million less. So if you think he's nailed, if you think he's going to start left wing and the minutes are fairly secure, and importantly, he's not going to get taken off early too often, then I do quite like that. I think that's a nice way of shaving 1 million, and Gakpo is not a bad pick by any means. So yeah, I do quite like it. It all depends on what you think Liverpool's strongest 11 is going to look like, and whether or not early subs are going to be a factor again for Gakpo, because I think people look at FPL under the lens of whether a player starts or not, whether he's locked to start. But a second important question is, how many minutes do they get per game? If Gakpo only gets 60 minutes a game, he's automatically only 2/3 as good as someone who gets 90. Obviously, the data then comes into it and it can balance out. But you do ideally want a player that ticks all of those boxes, that gets 80 to 90 a game, and so therefore maximizes the amount of chances they could possibly get and their time on the pitch. So yeah, I think it all depends on how bullish you are on Gakpo's minutes, basically. And hopefully that's not too much of a washy answer. I think I'd probably just go Verts right now, but it wouldn't, let's say, because Liverpool will be playing in the Community Shield, right? If Gakpo gets 80 in the Community Shield, or even 90, then that might be enough to tip me the other way. So yeah, I do like Gakpo as well. Marmoush, similar to Gakpo for me, in the sense that if you think his minutes are good, and it's Man City, right? There are risks for the minutes, but if you think the minutes are good, and Marmoush is fantastic. He was their second best attacker last season, and at times probably their best one. So he should start, but it's whether or not he gets taken off early as well. So at 8.5, it's a lot to spend on a player where there's just maybe a question mark. I mean, the market seem to think he's got a good chance of getting past 60, but then a low chance of getting to 90. If you think that he's got a slightly better chance, then he's obviously a good pick. And to be honest, he's still a good pick anyway. He's still averaging like 5 points a game. He might have some penalty share if Haaland comes off early ever. I don't dislike it. I think, for me, Marmoush is one of those players that's nearly made it into a lot of my drafts, but never quite. He's always like in my thinking, but there's always just been like that. Well, I mean, if you were here last season, you'll know I went for a few too many minutes risks at the start of last season, and it burnt me. And although I don't think Marmoush is a minutes risk in the sense that he won't start, I think he will likely get taken off early every now and then. And at that price, especially if it was like 6.57 million, I wouldn't even hesitate. He'd be straight in. But because you're spending that extra money, I think it is worthwhile trying to find the player around that price that is getting 80 to 90 and possibly does have penalties and some set pieces and all of that good stuff. Marmoush could tick a few of those boxes, and he could be a standout, amazing pick even at 8.5, but I'm willing to maybe wait and see on him at the moment. I wouldn't put you off of him though. I really wouldn't. He could be one of those that will be differential enough at the start of the season and has huge upside, as a lot of Man City assets do. So yeah, Marmoush could be very interesting. I'll go back to the statics just so we can get through a few of these. Another question actually, whilst we're on the overhyped question, which player do you think is overhyped? Which player, let's say they've got to at least be owned by some people. They can't just be differential when someone shouted them out. They've got to be getting a little bit of love on social media or in drafts. Which player do you think is just way being overhyped? Is it João Pedro, maybe? Kudus, possibly? Those would be two of the ones that arguably I think could be. Not for certain, obviously. But who are you thinking is overhyped at the moment? Let me know in the chat and we'll read them out. Nobby says João Pedro equals rotation hell. Yeah, maybe. Quite possibly. It's difficult on João Pedro because I do like him as a player. He's a very talented footballer. I just think Chelsea have got so many options. I just can't see how he gets 90 every single week. Maybe 70 is good enough. Maybe. I'm willing to concede that it might be worth having a Pedro at 70 minutes a match in such a good attacking side. But he had penalties last season, and I think he only got 10 goals last year, with 4 or 5 of them being penalties, where he was the talisman. So, yeah, I mean, he's in a much better attack now, working with better players around him. So his data should tick up, but missing the penalties won't help. Yeah, I think João Pedro could be one of them. Ndiaye, Nobby says as well. I think that's absolutely fair to say Ndiaye maybe is getting overrated. I still do rate him. I just, yeah, I do. You guys have maybe put that thought in my head now a little bit that maybe I should be looking at an Ismail Assar possibly. That would probably be my instinct. I could also look at Rodri or Rice as well. Don't mind that. Who else we got? We've got, yeah, Delap's playing right now for Chelsea. Isn't playing that well. Yeah, fair. And also on that note, João Pedro can play other positions as well, can't he? So yeah, that, I mean, he could get very good minutes. I just think it's the fact that whenever I talk about him, I always have to say the word could or should or might. Whereas there are certain players that when you're talking about them, the vernacular you use slightly changes. It's like with Salah, he's getting 90. With Bruno, he's getting 90. Okay, within reason. Obviously, things happen. But with a player like Pedro, you're like, he should or he could play 90. And like it just means that even if you think there's a very good chance that he starts and he gets good minutes, inherently, like just in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, but there is a risk, like there's a risk because it's happened before with millions of Chelsea assets and obviously other teams it applies to as well, Man City especially. So yeah, I mean, I think with Pedro, I just want to see. I just want to see those minutes for the first few game weeks. If he's getting 80 plus for the first 4 or 5 in a row, more than happy to jump on him straight away. Go there, take the fact that he's probably like gone up to 7.7, 7.8, missed out on a few points, but hopefully whoever I've picked has also scored a few points in the meantime. Who else we got? Salah being overrated, but from Stephen. I mean, how do I answer this without sound? Yeah, okay. At some point, and again, this is going to be this could like just throw a grenade on the chat. At some point, Salah is going to drop off, right? At some point, he's not going to get like 40 attacking returns a season forever, and he is like north of 30. You'd imagine at some point it slows down, right? And Slot, even in I think the recent press conference or interview, said one of the reasons we signed Frimpong is to lighten the load on Salah if he's feeling it a little bit. So, I mean, I don't think it's the most insane shout to say that Salah could maybe drop off, considering he's getting older. However, I don't think it's going to be this year. I think it's more likely to be next year, possibly the year after. He takes such good care of himself. Obviously, injuries can happen and fitness will naturally decay over time. But I think he is one of those players that I'd be surprised if he falls off a cliff this year. I mean, arguably he still is being slightly overhyped because everyone's going there rather than with Haaland. So maybe more of a balance is required. But yeah, I still think we're gonna see a very good season from Salah. I don't think he'll hit 344 points like he did last year. By the way, I think there will be a drop. I don't think he'll hit. Well, he might hit 300, but I don't think he'll get quite to the heights of last season. But I still expect him to get like north of 250, which like is still a very good season, even if it seems a little bit anticlimactic for someone like Salah. That's still a very good asset. So yeah, okay. Salah, I think that answers that one. Kudus, Kelleher, Konza, Gyökeres. Gyökeres is an interesting one. Could be overrated. I'm still interested to see what he does with Arsenal first few game weeks. And Burmo as well, Nixie says. Xhaka is the most underrated. That's a good question, actually. So we've had most overrated. Who's most underrated? Xhaka from the other gunner. That might have something to do with his Arsenal affiliation. It might be slightly playing on the minds there. Yeah, Xhaka maybe. I do like Xhaka, to be fair. I think he is a quality signing for Sunderland. They've done really well in the transfer market. Who else we got? I think Raya is ridiculously owned. Probably him as overrated. Okay. We've got people saying Xhaka. People like Xhaka. Arias as well. Arias, yeah, good shout. Good shout. Most underrated isn't a player at all, says Alex. It's Bench Boost 11. Bench Boost 11, interesting. I think we're going to have to go check that out, aren't we? We have to have a look. Right, let's go. What's Bench Boost 11 saying? Right, I'm going to do it with my team now, quickly. I mean, it's obviously not going to be optimized. So, this is Bench Boost 11. What have we got? So, we've got Nottingham Forest at home to Leeds. That's a good start. You've got some cheap assets there you can play. Burnley away at West Ham. Cheap assets. You can't play Sunderland. Obviously, you could play Leeds away at Nottingham Forest. Let's have a look at the full fixtures. Again, FPL.team, do go check it out if you haven't used them before. They're phenomenal, and completely free as well. I've paid for the ads removal for the sake of the stream because I didn't want ads just bombarding you, but do not feel like you need to pay to get the ads removed or anything. You can do all of this for free. Then, yeah, so you've got West Ham at home to Burnley. You've got some cheap West Ham assets. Another thing, actually, on the bench boost, hopefully not boring you to death with this, but a really important thing to remember with the bench boost is 99 times out of 100, most of us play with a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3, basically 3 at the back. So most bench boosts, the benefit you're getting is from the extra 2 defenders and the extra goalkeeper. So 3 of the 4 players that you're bench boosting with are effectively defensive assets. So to pick out a good bench boost week, what you want to be looking for is teams with cheaper defenders with a good home fixture, maybe away, but a good fixture with decent odds of a clean sheet. So West Ham in this week stands out off the page straight away. At home to Burnley, fantastic. You've got a good odds of a clean sheet, and you've got cheap assets. You've got 4.5 million goalkeepers. You've got 4.5 million defenders. Even a cheap striker like Fulkrug might come in handy as well as that one like extra attacker on your bench. So you've got options there. You've also got Nottingham Forest at home to Leeds. So maybe not as cheap, but you've still got cheaper defenders. So you've got Williams, you've got Aina, you've got Sells in goal. Okay, 5 million for a keeper is probably not that cheap, but decent. You've also got Fulham away at Everton, not bad at all. So you've got some 4.5s in there, Anderson, for instance. And you've got Burnley, of course, away at West Ham. Obviously, we've already talked about the flip side of that. And then on the pitch, in your starting 11, you'll have your Arsenal players away at Sunderland. You've got Chelsea at home to Wolves, but that doesn't help the bench boost per se. Like that, you're going to play them anyway, right? So the bench boost, you want to be looking at the cheap players in like the teams that have cheap players in the teams that have nice home fixtures, effectively. Maybe away, but yeah, basically any team with a good fixture with a good chance of a clean sheet who happen to have cheaper players. So, yeah, Bench Boost 11. Yeah, very interesting. He also says Wildcard 13. I'm with you on Wildcard 13. That's where I'm looking at the moment as well. So, yeah, I'm with you there, Alex, on the Wildcard especially. I'll have to do some more digging on the Bench Boost, but I like the way it's structured on first glance. So, yeah, thank you for that. So a few more underrated picks we were talking about in the chat. So we've got Lacroix. I think that's a very valid pick. Would have scored 147 points last season if Defcons were in the game. Very, very good for 5 million, I think. Nathan Collins, again, fantastic on Defcons. Wirtz will blow the game apart. Get on the train early. Could do. I've got Bruno right now. That could be Wirtz very easily. Save me the money as well. So yeah, absolutely happy with that. What else we got? So, due for Wan-Bissaka. I don't know whether that's a question of like which is underrated or which one would I go with. I think I'd probably go with Juve, actually. I really like the look of him. Wan-Bissaka's a safer pick. You know Wan-Bissaka's getting 80 to 90 every single week. But due for the X vibes, I do quite like him. Watching him in pre-season has been a bit of a joy. He's been very good. Yeah. So what else we got? I think we're probably all done on the underrated claims. What else did I want to talk about today, guys? Oh man, I can't believe I've waited almost 2 hours to talk about what I'm doing next Friday. So, as a few of you might be doing, let me know in the chat if you're already going. But every season I go to London to go to FPL Fest. So I think tickets are still on sale. I'm pretty sure they are in Vauxhall in London. From 2 p.m. I think it's 2 p.m. So Vauxhall Beer Hall in London. I'll be there. Obviously come say hi if you are coming as well. But importantly, before that, I'm also going to a little FPL meetup, which is open to everyone. Let me know in the chat or like just DM me on X if you want to go. That is also just round the corner in Vauxhall at something called is it Mother Kelly's, I think, or Mother Mary's, something like that in London. So again, if you're interested in coming to Fest and want to hang out beforehand with a few other people in a chilled out environment before going over, and we can go over as a group from about 12 o'clock midday, I'll be at, I think it's Mother Kelly's, right around the corner. So yeah, send me a DM or give me a message if you wanted to come to that. But yeah, I thought I'd just do a quick shout out for that. And what else have we got? So I think we've gone through most of the main talking points. Obviously, we went through my draft to start with. You guys tore it apart. No, you were pretty kind. You were fairly nice. You did say it was a bit template, which I think is fair. Although I think it is still 12 players who are under 20% owned. It's not that template. I think it's okay. It's also subject to change. I'll definitely be doing a couple of videos on it. I might do a video on this draft or on a draft in the next couple of days if it changes. And then obviously I've got my team selection towards the end of the week as well. Mateta's underrated, Dewsbury Hall as well. Yeah, both good shouts. We talked about Dewsbury Hall earlier, actually. I think he's a very good pick at 5 million, like at his price point. Obviously great at Leicester before he got the move to Chelsea. And then Mateta is underrated. I do kind of agree with that as well. I think Mateta, considering what we know he's capable of, and he could have penalties. I don't think it's impossible that he has penalties again. Both of them, I think, are good underrated shouts. What else have we got? Any other questions we want to sign off on? We've answered quite a lot of these on the scroll. Slanky in or out. Is DEFCON overrated? Good question to kind of wrap up on. DEFCON, what are we thinking about DEFCON? Do we think it's a little bit overhyped? Are we thinking that... Well, I mean, as you can see here, I've gone for a little bit of a balance. Like I've got Williams, Van Dijk and Anderson, and actually a Stev, so maybe not so balanced, all decent on DEFCON. But then I've also gone for like a little bit more of an upside attacking pick like Munoz, who isn't terrible on DEFCON considering his position, but also we know he's good for the attacking returns as well. So I think there's a balance to be struck. But I do like the drip feed, especially on the bench. I think... when we're talking about DEFCON, what I really like and what I think is really appealing for DEFCON is it raises the floor of some of the cheapest picks. So Anderson and Estev on my bench, they're not as useless as they might have. Well, Anderson's never been useless, let's say, but not a great FPL pick. Whereas this season, because they've got the DEFCON, and both of them are very good on DEFCON, by the way, they'll get DEFCON points at least 50% of the time, maybe in Estev's case, even up to 60% of the time. Because quite a lot of the game weeks, they'll get those extra 2 points. It just raises the floor a little bit. And in a week where I've got an injury or there's a suspension or rotation strikes and I'm not expecting it, it saves me from having to take the hit. And it also, because I would expect Anderson to get 4 points in the majority of weeks, or Estev maybe 3 or 4 points, it might just about save me from taking the hit or making a transfer in the first place. And although not every transfer has a hit attached, it does remove the opportunity to use that transfer at a later date. And those transfers are precious. I can use that in an attacking way to chase upside or get a great captain, maybe swap the premiums around. If I'm using it on an injured player, when actually I could just bring in Anderson or Estev and raise the floor a little bit with a 4-pointer, it's not great and I'm not expecting massive points from it, but it does kind of like save me structurally, and it just saves that transfer for me. So I think it's a really good addition, and that's the way that I'm going to be using it this season. On my bench to kind of crisis plan or crisis manage, I suppose. So yeah, overrated. I suppose it depends how you're rating it. Like if you think that people are rating it really, really highly, then yeah, probably it is a bit overrated. It's not a game breaker. Like the most you're getting out of most players is like an extra 30, 40 points, even on the best of them. But that is still like, I mean, for a defender, if you can get an extra 40 points, what is that? Like another 10 clean sheets? That's good. That's really good. Like, especially if you're looking at a team who already keep a fair few clean sheets, like an Everton or a Nottingham Forest or a Palace. If you can then spike an extra 10 clean sheets worth of points from the defensive contributions, that's really good value for money, especially considering a lot of them are 5 million or less, like in Anderson's case, 4.5. So yeah, overrated's always a tough one, because I don't know how highly it's being rated. But I think they're valuable. I wouldn't rip up your side just to have DEFCON players, though, put it that way. I think they've got a place in the game, mainly on the bench for me. But if you can find that perfect mix of attacking upside, DEFCON, and good clean sheets, then yeah, take all three. Virgil van Dijk's a great example. You've got kind of a bit of all three, and that's why he's such a good pick. So yeah, that's my interpretation of that. And it looks like the chat is generally agreeing. Nobby's agreeing at least. So that's good. Jack asks, and we will wrap up soon, by the way, because I'm starving. I might order something, or I might just do my steak. So we'll see. Jack asks, do you think Marlon will get 90 minutes game week 1? No, I don't. Sorry. He's never really been a player that gets 90 minutes full stop. And although, I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, he could get 90 minutes, but let's have a quick look at his minutes last season. He got 296 in half a season, effectively. He only started twice for Villa. He has looked good in pre-season. Like, I will give him that. And obviously Villa don't have quite as much depth as last season, but they've just signed Gesand, who comes highly rated. He probably will more likely play right wing more often than not. And Marlon seems to be the player that might be at risk. I mean, again, there's no guarantees there. Marlon has played well and he could take a step up and be the starter. But I think there's enough risk there that I would not confidently predict that he gets 90 minutes game week 1. And then even if he does, who's to say he gets 90 in game week 2? Who's to say he even gets 60 or 70 in game week 2? So I think every week you would look at that side and think, is that going to be an issue? And you're going to have that worry most weeks. So I think that hopefully that answers your question. It's a high upside pick. It could work out. But I think for me, it's just not the way I like to play FPL. I don't want a player where every single week I'm looking at the team sheet and kind of scared or crossing my fingers that he even starts the game. It gets to 60 minutes and I'm like, is he gonna keep playing? Is he gonna get past 60, or is he going to get to the end of the game? And I think Marlon is just one of those players that I'm not fully confident on at the moment. Things can change though. First few game weeks, if he does get 90 consistently and he proves his fitness and he proves his value to the team, then absolutely. Okay, cool. So, before we wrap up, because I think we're going to wrap up now. There are 38 of you in the stream right now. If you could leave a like, I haven't checked how many likes I've got on the stream, but if you could leave a like and hit subscribe, importantly, that would be really, really appreciated. I'm up to 4,077. If I could get to 4,080 by the end of the stream for subscribers, that would be amazing. So if any of you aren't subscribed, I'd really appreciate it if you could do so. And again, feel free to hit that notification bell if you want to see more of my content. I'll be going live next Thursday. So I'm always going to go live the day before the deadline for a bit of a drink and a chat, and we can run through some teams. We can talk about all of the press conferences, ask some questions, and hopefully have a bit more of a chilled out live stream without the pressure of a deadline approaching most weeks. So I'll be back live next Thursday evening, probably around the same time again. But between now and then, I'll have daily videos. I think daily videos all the way up to Thursday next week. And then if you want to come say hey to me in London on Friday at FPL Meets or at FPL Fest, I'll be there. Drop me a DM on X or on Blue Sky, wherever, and tell me that you're coming, and I'll keep an eye out for you. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I've really appreciated you tuning in. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and hopefully it's been of at least some value to you. I'm now going to drink the rest of my single beer, which I've taken 2 hours to drink because I just have not stopped talking. I will get better at that, I promise. But hopefully you've all enjoyed yourself. And for the time being, good luck continuing drafting. I've massively appreciated your feedback on mine, and I'll be back with you with a video tomorrow and every day following until we get to the next live stream next Thursday. So yeah, thanks again, guys. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking, and I will see you very soon. For now, though, I am going to log off and go and get dinner.